Yasmina, and let me start with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. And I really would like also to be thanking and to be part of Port Market 2020 Global Legal Technology Summit. Thank you for organizing this event and inviting me here to address an important topic, which is innovation in justice. I do remember in 2014, I had a debate with my colleagues in Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Center about innovation. And the debate was, is it really innovation came from the government, or does it come from the private sector? And I do remember very clearly that I have jumped to this debate immediately and says definitely it came from the private sector. And since that the private sector is more dynamic, agile, and the competition is really high in the private sector. And one of the gentlemen, he just jumped in and said, Abdullah, but look at what's happening with UAE government. I said, just put UAE government as an exception, because UAE government is acting like a private sector. That's why they are into innovation. And here, where I'm going with you today. And I really would like to bring this discussion and debate again in front of the audience and says, does innovation in justice came from judiciary system, ministries of justice, or does it came from the law firms, lawyers' offices? Or maybe it can come from anywhere else, from the private sector, where it can really disturb the function of the judiciary system. And to get into this debate, we need to understand really what's the meaning of innovation in justice. Is it only related to technology? Is it something that really we would like to bring into as AI, BI, blockchain? Is it something that is we need to adopt as technologies on the procedures that we have, or it's something beyond that? And I have been working heavily for the last almost 6 years here as working as an undersecretary assistant in the Ministry of Justice. And I start doing something called a toolbox, something called Justice Innovation Toolbox. What is it really important that we need to have in this toolbox? And I start to identify some of the important tools that make access to justice easy for everybody, or to make justice coming to people. So when we start understanding access to justice as a need, and we start considering access to justice and handling it like any private sector service, it has to be available 24/7, like an airport. It has to be 5-star service, as we have it in hotels. And it has to be easy and smooth in its procedures, like getting to a bank. This is the formula which Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid have implemented in public services. That's why UAE government is trying to be unique into innovation, because the mindset is really start to think differently from being a solid organization. We need to think more in terms of rules and regulation into an organization which is really considering the private sector measures like availability, the quality of services, and the ease of providing the service. And let me get you into each one of those in terms of what is availability? What is available? How come we can consider access to justice to be available 24/7? So it is not only morning courts, not only night courts, small courts. It's having justice available 24/7 by implementing solutions that can be available 24/7. That doesn't mean that it's only required services from judiciary system. It's also law firms and lawyers. They need to rethink again into providing their services 24/7 to reach that high of providing services and the availability 24/7. How could this happen? We need to understand how's the private sector trying to resolve conflict. We need to look at models in Amazon, in Apple, and ePay. How really those companies trying to resolve their conflicts with their clients. Of course, we have started thinking in Ministry of Justice and implementing another layer, which is under an ODR solution, online dispute resolutions, and trying to have this layer is out of the level of judiciary. It's completely optional. It's available for people, and people can consider it as an option where they can resolve their small claims. They can look at information in terms of how to resolve the conflict, exactly as what's those multinational companies are trying to resolve their conflicts. Definitely should ODR play a form in implementing by justice system or by any lawyers. This is something that I really would like to encourage. Most of judiciary system, they really would like to innovate and to bring latest technologies and solutions to the people. But ODR solution, it has to be implemented by those government organizations. Can a law firm have an online dispute resolution, inviting all the parties and trying to be part of resolving conflict in the mindset of Amazon and Apple and name it, different multinational companies? This mindset, it has to be changed where we can really start thinking of having a 5-star services. And when it came to 5-star services and to act like having a 5-star service, what's really required? We need to look at the data, and we need to analyze the data. And here where it's come in Ministry of Justice, when we start analyzing the data and to provide it based on the quality of service, which can support business intelligence and artificial intelligence. Definitely, we cannot say that maybe in the future we can replace a judge by having an artificial judge, or we can replace a lawyer by having an artificial lawyer. And this is, by the way, it's happening. And people has been speaking about end of lawyers for almost now 6 years. I do remember when one of my colleagues, he came and he gave me a gift of the book of End of Lawyer, and he was really amazed. He said, is it really gonna happen, End of Lawyer? Yes, it's gonna happen if we didn't change the mindset that we are working with. How we have started doing that in Ministry of Justice? We started trying to have algorithms that can understand the data, trying to provide solutions to the client. And we have started doing something called smart queuing, and people, they really can choose which service center they would like to go based on the smart queuing that they have, based on the time and the number of people who's waiting. But again, this is gonna be more interactive in terms of trying to analyze the data and providing the judges the support where he can really rely on the artificial intelligent algorithms data. In terms of the smooth and the ease of procedures, just like getting into the bank, re-engineering the processes is one of the most important things that we need to focus on inside the core. And looking at what is really that's core business and what is really that is non-core business, and try to bring innovation ideas into the core business, and trying to provide or to outsource whatever is not non-core business to the private sector. And here where we start doing that in Ministry of Justice, so we have outsourced all the notification to one of the companies that we are working with to deliver notification. We have started doing the case registrations with Tasheel, and people, they can also go to Tasheel to register, and they can do this also online. Those type of focusing on core, non-core, it will help the organization to be more agile, to be more not heavy in terms of what's required to be developed. What's happened after COVID-19? Now, we have been starting doing this innovations for a long time in Ministry of Justice in terms trying to bring the state-of-the-art case management system, e-notary system, e-marriages system. So we have started doing that for the last 10 years, and we have successfully implemented a solid background in terms of IT solutions, which can really support the core business environment. And during the pandemic, I do remember that I had this discussion with the leaders here in Ministry of Justice, and they said, should we shut down during this pandemic, or should we start thinking of providing the services online? Without naming any judiciary system, many judiciary system has been shut down because of trying to make sure that the virus is not spread across people. And we have successfully, alhamdulillah, implemented video conferencing over court services. That's happened within less than 15 days since the infrastructure are ready. And the pandemic, it was really a huge test for us to really understand that does we have a solid infrastructure to rely on, And this is really what has been as a successful story in Ministry of Justice in terms of implementing video conferencing, and the technology was there already. So all what we need is just to plug and play the latest technology, video conferencing, and we started providing the service. Testing the infrastructure was really smooth, since that we have a very young infrastructure for 5 to 3 years infrastructure that can carry all the loads of going online. Definitely the government strategy, not Ministry of Justice, the government strategy of United Arab Emirates was a huge support in terms of going online and providing the services online. That's happening from the guideline from the Prime Minister Office directly in terms of providing the services within a matter of time. Who was really struggling at that moment? I do remember that some law firms, offices and lawyers were struggling in terms of upgrading their infrastructure inside their offices, or trying to adopt those type of services while they have the lockdown. And that was a huge challenge. That's why I really thought that it's very important that we need to bring back the story of, should innovation came from the government, or does it came from the private sector and the law firms? And I believe that there is a huge pressure and a huge demand on the law firms in terms of trying to bring a new innovation as a private sector, as law firms who's really trying to provide services to the end users and think like a private sector. This is very important in terms of how we can access to justice much easier for people, or maybe making justice coming to people as we are trying to do here in the Ministry of Justice. There is one single point also that I would like to add, that when we start implementing video conferencing, we have reduced the cost of infrastructure of video conferencing dramatically. That has been reduced from almost 50,000 dirham to 2,000 dirham for each courtroom. So that was really a huge challenge for us to also manage the budget within, and that's why we have successfully implemented all the courts in the federal government to function as an e-court, and to be available and to make justice coming to the people. At the end, a small advice to law firms and to judiciary systems across the world. Innovation is very important, really, to make it much easier for people to access justice. And what we really need to do as people working in the justice arena, to think like spiders, to sense each individual changes happening across the world. Unfortunately, dinosaurs has vanished. And if we keep thinking like a dinosaur and says that nobody can impacting us, I believe that we will vanish like that. However, dinosaurs and spiders, they have the same age, but spiders successfully survived because that there is a fear in their heart that somebody will impact somehow somebody will change the way that they are doing or living. That's why having this fear in the heart in terms of providing the best service for people is very important. And this is really what COVID-19 came and proved. Thank you very much.